Hello, hello. I'm Eleanor Rose, and this is the lovely Nicole Vaunt, who I am so excited to be talking to today. Thank you so much for joining us, Nicole.
Yeah, I'm so glad to be here.
So I'm so excited to have you on board because you are such an active member of our community and a wonderful model. You do a lots of traveling, and now you're also doing some teaching and education as well. So I'm super exciting.
Thank you. Yeah, trying to do it all, I guess.
And very successfully from the looks of it.
I don't do it all myself, but yeah, I'm doing pretty well. So I feel very lucky, very privileged to be where I'm at.
Awesome. Awesome. So how I'm sort of starting out with everybody. Oh my gosh, there's a hummingbird right outside my window. Sorry about that.
That's amazing. It's
a good sign. And was staring at me. Yeah, okay, so now that you know I'm easily distractible, where I'm liking to start with everybody is just how did you get started as a freelance nude model?
So I started modeling very casually when I was like 17, right as I started college. And so funny story, my best friend and I really wanted to go to FetishCon in Tampa. I don't actually shoot a lot of fetish anymore, but I've always been very interested in everything about it. And so you could get in for free at the time if you had a Model Mayhem profile. And so I had one of my really good friends take some photos of me with like a belt as a shirt. I don't know what was happening. And I put them on Model Mayhem and started to get a response from people. I never wound up going to FetCon. I've never been to FetishCon, but I started to get reactions from people. And so I wound up doing a couple shoots over the next 3 to 4 years, very, very casually. And then once I graduated, I wasn't really doing it super full time until I met my current partner, Corwin.
Awesome. So how long did it take for you to really get it going as a career or as sort of a sustainable source of income?
It's interesting because when I started doing this about almost 8 years ago full time, I guess 8 years ago this summer, it was a slightly different environment then. Model Mayhem was a little more, it was almost like the only networking site that a lot of people were on. And so there was a lot more happening in the forums on Model Mayhem, which is how you wind up meeting people and talking with people, or there were just more people who were actively on it at the time. And like I said, there was less, not only were there less models at the time, there were also just people who were interested in doing this work. And so I got on Model Mayhem, and almost instantly, I mean, I would say within a year, I was traveling full time and making a living from it. And it's interesting because when I think of, I wouldn't call it a breakout in a way, because what I realized is that the ability and how would I say, you have the ability and the desire and the access to transportation. You can actually drive to anywhere in the country. And I think a lot of people responded to the fact that I was able and willing to drive to places where there weren't necessarily a lot of models or models that didn't show up on time. And so I think that my ability to just go to those places and be willing to work and be there and be on time and be ready to go and be an enthusiastic person really helped take me to the next level and helped me monetarily. And honestly, the only way I was able to do that lifestyle, because I'd never really gone on any big road trips when I was younger. It never even occurred to me to cross the country in a car, was when I met my current partner, Corwin Prescott, who was very comfortable doing those kinds of things. And so when he and I met, we started working together a ton. We would shoot as much as we could, which I also think is one of the keys to success, is just working and shooting all the time. Like, don't stop. Like, always try something new, always trying to be working, always trying to be shooting, and also always try to be driving. We were living in Chicago at the time. We would drive to Ohio, and we would drive to anywhere that we could. We would drive to Michigan. We would drive back to the East Coast, to Philly, where he had family, or we would go to DC where I had family. And just that ability to drive from point A to point B and stop wherever we wanted in between, plus the network that is Model Mayhem at the time, allowed us to find people in these areas who wanted to hire me or wanted to hire Corwin, and also people who would let us sleep on their couches and floors. That is so, so, so important to how I managed to make this into my full-time gig very, very, very quickly.
That's awesome. It's really cool. So now, when you say you found people who were willing to host you, was this mostly models or photographers?
So a lot of them were models. Some of them were photographers. It sort of just depended on who you clicked with, I guess.
Right.
A lot of it really started from, Corwin was much more active on the forums than I was. I couldn't take SF2. After a little while, that forum just got too overwhelming and crazy, and I was out. But he was more active on there, and so he would talk to models he wanted to shoot, or sometimes I would be talking to a photographer, and they would say, hey, you can crash with me if you want, or we'll shoot some stuff, and in exchange you can stay in our guest room, or you can roll out a mat and sleep on the floor. I've slept on a lot of floors and very filthy couches, and also amazing couches and amazing guest rooms. It just sort of wound up being whatever the people were offering that we felt comfortable accepting. So
that's awesome. Cool. So then that provides sort of a perfect segue. How has being in community with other industry people, and especially other models, helped you with your career?
I don't think I could even quantify that. It has been priceless to be able to be part of a community. You can't really do the freelance industry without relying on community, which is why reputation is so important, which is why reliability is very important. You have to be able to, I guess, know who to reach out to, and then also consistently be engaged in that community. So talking to new people, reaching out. I'm still to this day, and I've reached a certain amount of success that I feel very happy with. I'm still reaching out to people I don't know. We're still getting models who contact us in different countries now and are saying that, oh, I really want to work with you, and you guys can sleep on my couch. And so we've done a lot of that. We've definitely, with more of our success, especially due to Patreon, which has completely changed the game, we've been able to, rent an Airbnb or stay in a hotel, and we don't have to sleep in our car as much. We used to do a lot of car sleeping, camping, and floors. That was it for a couple of years. But now we're able to stay at hotels or Airbnbs. And one of the keys with Airbnb too, for anyone who wants to try this, if you find a listing that doesn't have super great photos and you rate them and you're willing to take really nice wide photos for them, oftentimes they'll give you a discount. So we've done that a couple times, which I really recommend. It doesn't always work, but I think it's a good hack to at least approach someone with.
That's a really neat idea. I like it.
Yeah, it works out really well. But community is invaluable. Reaching out to other models, not only for safety, which is something that I'm very concerned about, but also for contacts. The trade for trade of contacts with other models is essential. If you're going to an area you've never been to before, the way that you find reliable contacts is through other models or through cold calls. I guess cold emails would be the way to describe it. But yeah, community is incredibly important. It is nearly invaluable. You can't do any of this business at any level without being engaged in some kind of community.
Yeah, absolutely. That's really awesome. Yeah, you covered just so many different aspects of why community is valuable. That's awesome.
I probably talked too fast. I'm sorry. I have a
What was that?
Run on sentences.
No, it's all good. I ended up with so many follow-up questions that now I'm like, I lost them all. But
I'm sorry. I'll be here. Let us think about that.
Yeah. So I'm wondering then, maybe if you had to pick, since it sounds like there's so many ways that it's really helped you throughout your career, what's one of the biggest ways that having those networks with other models has really, what's made the most impact?
I think just the willingness of other models to trade contacts with you, of people who are willing to hire you, because there are a lot of photographers out there who don't hire models, and that's totally fine. If you don't want to hire a model, that's your prerogative and you don't have to. And it's nicer to be able to reach out to people that you know for a fact are willing to hire professional models, as opposed to people who don't want to be contacted for that. And So it's really, really great to have another model be willing to give you a list of contacts in exchange for you giving one. And that's a really, really industry standard sort of interaction. But again, you have to have traveled or already done shoots, and that other person has to find it valuable, what you're offering. So you have to make sure that you're engaging with another model who is sort of on par with you and who is willing to give you something of equal value that you can offer.
Right. Yeah, that's such a good point. And I found, as a new model myself, it was really intimidating because it's like, at what point do I have enough contacts to justify it? I don't know if we can maybe trade contacts. But it's really interesting. At some point, other models just sort of started offering contacts. And then I was able to be like, oh, cool, here's mine in return.
Yeah.
And so it's been really fascinating and wonderful for me with how friendly and engaging this community can be. Once you show up as somebody who's actually willing to be friendly and engaging in return. And I think that's a big part of it, is you have to actually show up as someone who's valuable for fellow models, even if that's just being a friend to talk to.
Yeah, definitely. Or being willing, if someone's in the same airport as you on a layover for 5 hours, you go and see them. Or if you go to their area, you try to hang out, or you get a drink, or you just try to shoot together. Or it's friendship. It's really about friendship. That friendship is a part of it. You don't necessarily have to be close friends. I feel like I have a ton of friends who I really like, although they might be classified more as acquaintances. But that seems like such a cold word. Just because you're professionally friends doesn't mean that, gosh, this sounds terrible. I have to back up. I feel like it just makes me sound so like cold-blooded about it. But you have to be professionalism responds to professionalism. And I have a lot of people that I really, really value. They don't necessarily have very close friendships with, but I really value them as models and as people, and I like making them a priority.
Right. And that makes so much sense to me, because it does feel like, after a certain point, maybe you only even talk in passing, or you're just in the same groups and see each other all the time. But at some point it feels like, oh yeah, that's my friend. I'm not even sure if we've actually spoken, but she's
Exactly. The number of times I've been like, oh, I know them. I've never met them, but I know them. It's really funny.
Yeah, it's a really interesting industry in that way.
The best way I've ever heard it described, and again, Corwin's so good with words. He has the best way of describing things. He pictures the internet as sort of this cloud that is a town that exists above everything else. And so we all know each other in this town, this cloud that exists all above us, and we interact. That's where we work. That's where we hang out. And we're not tied to geography anymore, which I think is incredibly valuable. So we can exist up here over in the interwebs, and you can be friends with someone there even if you've never met them in real life, because geography prohibits you from doing so. And so I think that that's such a great visual to imagine our friendships as these little things that exist in a cloud above the world.
I love that. That's really neat. Yeah, but I think going back to sort of what got us on this tangent is I think a big part of it is showing up as somebody who's wanting to actually engage in the community, and not just showing up as, I need contacts. Can you give me contacts, please? Like, definitely. I feel like, when we hear from models who have a sense of entitlement, that sort of turns us off. But if you just change the approach a little bit and come in friendly, we're more than willing to help out most of the time.
And I think being not necessarily putting on an act, being upfront with the fact that you that you are a newer model, or that you mostly do this kind of work and you really want to reach out to this kind of work, be honest. I think that showing your vulnerability, showing who you are and where you're really at, and being authentic is so important, not just in this community, but in a sense of branding as well. There's so many amazing models going on right now that you have to be authentic to stand out. You have to be genuine. You need to show some kind of vulnerability. You need to be upfront with people. You need to be engaging in a way that feels real and authentic, because if you don't, people can smell it. And so not only within our community, but also for branding purposes and for your fans and for your public, you want to be as authentic as possible. And that means being upfront with the things you're good at and not good at. And I think that other people will respond to that, especially older models. If you come in and say, hey, I don't know a ton about this, but I really want to get engaged, how can I do so? Now that's a way to interact with the community without being like, hey, I'm a model and I deserve contacts. I'm
Absolutely.
hot, give me things, you know. It doesn't really quite work like that.
Fuck you, pay me.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. So was there ever a point in your career where you felt like you sort of had a breakthrough where maybe you were struggling or sort of went stagnant and then something happened that made it so you could go to the next level?
mm, Dating Corwin and having that ability again to travel and to shoot frequently, I think really enabled me to get better at a much quicker rate than I could have otherwise. Dating within the industry can be a little strange. Sometimes I advise people against it, or if you're attracted to someone when you're shooting, like put down the camera and go on a date. I think that for me, where that line is, you shouldn't, if you're finding yourself attracted to someone and then you start photographing that attraction, that gets messy very, very, very quickly. And so I am a big fan of, if you're attracted to someone and you're into someone, do a shoot, but then put the camera down, go on a date. That's what Corwin and I did. The first day we met after we shot, we went out and we really connected, and that worked out. But you have to really be careful. But dating a photographer is very, very, very valuable, because you can both, especially if you're both on that same level of learning, he and I have been able to help each other grow in a way that I couldn't even measure. The place that I'm at now would only be possible with him, and it would only have been possible with my community. And no one succeeds by themselves. That whole pull yourself up by your bootstraps bullshit does not fucking work. You have to be able to have great people around you, and you have to have the privilege and the ability to be able to just travel or to have a car to get into in the first place. And so those things, I can't say that there's a specific thing that helped me break out, because there are so many things that led to where I am now. I don't know if there's ever been a time that I felt that there was one thing that really made stuff click. It's just being focused and doing this. I think the best description I've ever heard about this industry is that the arts are a game of who lasts the longest. If you can just continue to work, continue to put out work, continue to engage, also have the ability to pivot. That's why Patreon has been so great. If there are less bookings, you can shoot some of your own content or work with one person to create content for something like Patreon. Those things are incredibly valuable, and you have to be engaged in that way. You have to continue on this path for the rest of your life if you want to be successful, I feel like. So I don't really believe in such a thing as like one breakout thing. I don't know if I've ever had something that really put me on the map. I've only been on one magazine cover in my life. I've maybe been in 2 or 3 magazines ever. So yeah, there hasn't been a big major thing that I would say has really helped me.
Awesome. So it more just like a steady progression over time then.
That's what it seems like, at least for me. For other people that it might be different, but for me it's just been a slow, steady build of working, perfecting my hair and makeup, perfecting my look, really helping. The more you shoot, the more you define what your brand is and what your look is best at. Like, just look at this setup I gave myself. Like, I work well as the sort of femme fatale, this kind of, the word's so silly, but the thing that people describe me the most as is classy, even when I curse like a trucker. It just isn't. It's just one of those things that people consider a defining word for me. And so exploring that, you only figure out those keywords by working, by shooting, by trying different things. When I first started modeling, I look at old photos and I'm like, why did people hire me? My God, my hair was like this short, super asymmetrical. My makeup, my eyebrows. Oh, my eyebrows at the time were terrible. But you keep working, and yeah, I would go to thrift stores. I still go to thrift stores. I think being able to modify your own clothes is really helpful. I routinely modify or make my own clothes so that things fit really well, which makes you feel more comfortable and gives you better images when you have wardrobe that stands out. Even when you're a naked model, if you have something that's really beautifully sheer, it helps elevate you to something that looks more like a fashion nude, which is something that I'm always engaged in. So if that's not your thing, then that's cool. But all those little pieces are those building blocks of what get you to where you are. And you don't do that unless you just start working. If you want to be successful in this industry, I say just start doing it.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Long-winded explanation.
I love it. Yeah, so you mentioned working with Corwin, and one of the things that I know you two are doing right now that I think is awesome is you're running these workshops.
Yeah.
And I've been watching those really excitedly because people who follow me know that I think we need more workshops that are either model run or at least have a model active in the running of them.
100%.
Yeah.
It's about fucking time.
Right.
Photographers have been doing it kind of at the expense of models for a long time. And I love seeing the women, especially like Anastasia Artavia, who I think that you've already also interviewed, is amazing. She has some of the best taste that I have ever seen. She is just so romantic and so beautiful. And her workshops, I think, were a pivotal point in the development of this because she was able to offer an all-inclusive, incredibly beautiful and romantic and curated experience. And I think that she's really able to do that because she's seen as a model what works and what doesn't. So I'm very grateful that we're being able to engage more in that. Corwin's such an amazing teacher. He is really, really also invested in the community on the photographer end of making people who maybe didn't ever pick up a camera before feel comfortable behind the lens. There's a lot of photographers, and I'm sure you've worked with them, who don't feel confident. And that confidence is really, really important. You have to believe in what you're doing. And so Corwin is amazing at that aspect of it, especially helping people feel comfortable behind the lens. I'm a really good organizer, and so the two of us together, it just felt like such an obvious thing to do. And it's succeeding really well. I'm incredibly happy about this new path that we're doing going forward.
That's awesome. So what is this new path then?
Oh, so the new path is really just trying to do more of these workshops. We're going to be doing some in the Pacific Northwest as well as certain parts of the West. We have been routinely doing them in Iceland. Our latest one is sold out, which is so exciting. We're already planning for the next one.
And coming out of those Iceland trips.
Yeah, they're amazing. Iceland, every single person is like, it's almost too easy here. The light's like a giant softbox, and the landscape is ridiculously beautiful. It's not really. It's quite easy. It's quite easy to get good photos there.
That's awesome.
I'm so excited that we're taking this opportunity with the experience and the fan base that we've created for ourselves after these 8 years of doing this, to be able to now offer our expertise and our organizational skills and bring that to more people. And so going forward, I'm really excited about us just teaching more and being able to lift up the community by helping other people. I'm really, really, really passionate about raising up this community, even if I don't personally know someone. That's why I did the Blacklist. I didn't compile it, but I helped publicize it because I feel it's so important for new models to be protected. And I just really feel very strongly that anything that I can do to help encourage and make this community better, I want to be engaged in, which is why I'm so happy you're doing this.
Thank you. Yeah, and I actually talked earlier in this summit with Brennan about the Blacklist, but I'd love to hear a little bit about what that meant to you to bring that to the community.
Well, I, first of all, didn't think that it would have the wide-reaching effect that it has had. It has so many reblogs on Tumblr. Every time I post about it on Facebook, I get messages. Women still write me with their experiences. And so it's a sobering thing to have helped publicize that, because I feel like we helped make apparent how unfortunately prevalent certain abuses are in this industry. And I'm very, very proud to have helped Brennan publicize that, because I do have a fairly large fan base, and I thought that it was important to have that fan base and use it for good. I actually think that anyone with a large or semi-large following has a duty to the people that follow them to do good with it. I have privilege in that way, and the way that I need to use that privilege is by helping others. And so I really saw this as an opportunity to help other people. It was never vindictive. A lot of the people I never even worked with or knew, but there was so much that needed to be made public. And even though it's cost me personally out of pocket almost 20 grand to defend that list, I don't have any regrets. And I do have some regrets because now I don't have savings, but I am really glad that at least I'm in a place that I can pay those bills. And there are models out there who have been hurt that maybe they won't be hurt going forward. And so I think that that's incredibly invaluable. When she first showed me the list, it was a no-brainer. I knew that I had to help.
Yeah. And I know that made such a big impact on so many people. And for myself, it made me finally feel comfortable to move forward and speak out about some names that I had that I've been wanting to share publicly, but hadn't up to that point. And I know that it did that for a lot of models. So I feel like there was a ripple effect throughout the industry.
Definitely. And I'm so glad you mentioned that, because I feel like I noticed more and more safety groups popping up on Facebook. I'm a member of quite a few of them all across the US. And I think that I hadn't seen quite as many of those before the Blacklist went public in May of 2015. And I'm so happy to see that there are more people being engaged in protective groups, because I think it's really, really important. It's unfortunate that it's so important, but it is incredibly important in all levels of modeling. So I'm very grateful to have had any kind of part in helping that happen.
Well, I know we're all grateful as well.
Awesome.
Now you mentioned that you have had some legal fees associated with this, and I know that there's a legal fund on GoFundMe. Could you share the details about that? Because I forgot to ask Brennan about it, and I'd love that to be out there for the Summit watchers.
So the GoFundMe is a model legal resource fund on GoFundMe, and if you check the links beneath this video, there will be a link to it. It is run by both Brennan and I, and we split the proceeds 50-50 towards our legal bills. If anyone feels like donating to me directly, that would be super amazing, and they can do so via PayPal, and I'll also include, if Eleanor doesn't mind, a link to that below the video as well. But it really was, the cost for this kind of thing is astronomical, because the way the legal system is set up is that you have to respond. And to respond correctly, it costs thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars. I had to respond to one thing and it cost me almost 10 grand. That's how insane these kinds of things are. It has to be in a specific legalese. The lawyers have to do a lot of work for a lot of this. And so it's money that I think is appropriate for lawyers, but it also just guts me to have to write a check that big. So again, I don't regret it, but if anyone wants to help, that would be super wonderful, so we can continue to fight the good fight.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And absolutely. When I first saw that model legal fund going around, I made sure to share that, because like I said, you've helped so many models in this industry, myself included, that it's not fair for you to face the brunt of that responding ire all by yourself.
I appreciate that. I'm really glad that it's managed to help people. It gives me so much joy to have been able to help people, and then I still get messages from models being hurt, and that also just makes me realize how vast of a problem this kind of thing is. And in all industries, there are people who are taking advantage of other people, and there are people who are being predators in every industry. Ours is just, we don't have insurance, we don't have an HR department, we don't have any of the trappings of a traditional job to help protect us. And so this kind of list and those kinds of groups are how we protect ourselves. And I think that it's so important. And I'm very grateful and super happy to hear that it's helped people like you. Every time I get a message like that from someone, it makes me feel so warm inside.
Yeah, and you brought up something there that I feel is really important to acknowledge, that this is something that we would be facing regardless of career. Because I feel like people would look at conversations like these or something like the Blacklist and they go, you're putting yourself in that situation because of the career you've chosen. But, you know, the stats that I like to quote to people is when I was in college, I was sexually assaulted, I think like 5 or 6 times in 2 or 3 years. And as a nude model, it's only been 2 times it's been like 6, 7 years now. And my work as a model is how I learned to put up boundaries to stop that.
Yeah, that's
it would still be happening if I didn't learn boundaries through my modeling and have this community. And honestly, I mean, I was sexually harassed when I worked at a law firm. I didn't feel like I could do anything about it. As a model, we have this support network. We have this community that gathers around us, and we have more agency and are more empowered to actually do something about it.
Exactly. And I wish more people realize that, yes, we're going to strange hotel rooms or houses with people we've never met and getting naked, but that is no excuse for us to be assaulted. And that is definitely no excuse for us to be silent about it. So I absolutely recommend that people, when they are hurt, even if you don't feel comfortable going to the police, to say as factually and unemotionally as possible exactly what happened to you in a public forum like Facebook. Or I encourage people, because we're not actively adding to the list for legal reasons, I very, very, very strongly recommend that people go on Tumblr, reblog the list with the name of the person who has hurt them or made them deeply uncomfortable, and talk about your experience. Let it be out there in a public forum. Let people know what's happened to you. Just make sure that it's as factual as you can make it. And please, if people can, include evidence. Because the first thing that you'll get from people is, oh, this is hearsay. Like, it's just your word against theirs. And that's true in a way. So the more evidence you have, the better. That's the only part that sort of sucks in this, is that you have to make sure that you're being incredibly honest and providing as much evidence as possible so that you're taken seriously.
Yeah. And I do want to say there, while I feel it's really important as many of us speak out as possible, for people who feel like they can't do that, that's still okay. Your experiences are still valid. Like, you're absolutely not obligated to speak out. But if you ever do hit a point where you feel comfortable doing it, for me, it took 2 or 3 years to be able to speak out about what happened to me as a model. So when you do feel comfortable, what was that?
Sorry.
Go on.
What? Oh, I was just trying to underline your point. Absolutely. If you don't feel comfortable coming forward, that's okay. Yeah. The only thing that I try to emphasize to people is, if and when you do feel comfortable, I hope it's sooner rather than later, because your experience might help someone else getting hurt.
Yeah.
But if you don't feel comfortable, that's okay. You know, take the self-care. If you can afford to get a therapist, please do so. If you can find some way to process, like, please, please, please make that a priority for yourself. And it always hurts when I see models say something like, this person and their behavior made me stop modeling. And that makes me so sad, because modeling, like you said, it can help you establish boundaries. It can help you say no if you have a problem saying no, especially as women, we are conditioned to say no and be subservient. And if it can help you to organize, to be a business person, to save money, to be a travel agent, to meet new people, to create, those things are things that I've gotten from modeling that are invaluable. And when I see that some fucking asshole has decided to take advantage of someone young and new and enthusiastic and basically ruined their desire for this business, that's unacceptable to me. And I want to make sure that doesn't happen to other people.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, I feel like that's always such a tragedy.
Yeah. Who knows what they could have done? And that goes for all industry. Think of the people who were assaulted young or assaulted in their fields, and that makes them not want to be engaged in the field. The tech industry is a really good example of this. It has in some sections of it, has a very brotastic, very masculine vibe about it. And sometimes that plus terrible behaviors have made women not want to be involved in those industries. And I think that that is a tragedy too. We need people, especially women, actively involved in as many industries as possible.
Yeah. Yeah. And I feel like it really is so important. It's important for us to have these discussions about this happening within our community, and then also keep going back to the fact that this is a wider societal issue.
Yes.
Because I think we need to discuss both sides of that coin, because it's important to talk about how it affects us directly as models. But if we don't keep reminding people that this is a broader societal thing, it really does just come back to, well, then go do something different.
Exactly.
Go be a model. You're putting yourself there. And one of the things that confuses me so much is people think that it's our fault for putting ourselves in harm's way, because sometimes we go work in people's houses where they have their home studios. So we're going to strange men's houses alone to work. And yet they're okay. I mean, when I was 14, 15, 16, I went to strange men's houses to babysit for them, and I would go get in their car and let them drive me to their house. And everybody was cool with that. So that's really not what they have an issue with. That's just how they try to make what they have an issue with okay.
Yes, absolutely. That's such a good point. It's nothing like this. The modeling industry doesn't exist in a vacuum. We don't exist in a vacuum. It's not enough to just say, oh, don't do X. Oh, put on longer shorts is basically the same sort of thing. So we need to be talking about this as a larger feminist issue. This is one facet of an issue where women are not taken seriously by the police. This is part of an issue that women are encouraged to stay silent. And this guy that's suing us, it's a way for him to make our lives hell, is what it feels like. And I wish he'd stop doing it, but that's just how things are as a larger societal problem. And this is only one tiny, tiny, tiny facet of it that we are engaged in. And it makes you feel kind of hopeless sometimes. I'm like, what has this list really done besides cost me tons of money? It has those uncomfortable results, but this is a bigger problem. This is a much, much, much bigger problem.
Yeah, and at the same time, it's brought me so much hope, because the way that we have banded together as freelance models and created this tight-knit community, and really are doing our best to make sure that newer models as they come in have access to knowing who to stay away from, that we've got it set up so people can check references. We try to make ourselves accessible as possible for that, so that they're not scared to check references with us. And we're banding together, we're creating this solidarity, we're standing in community. For me, that's given me so much hope, because that's something that I've not had access to in any other facet of my life. And I think that's something really special that we've been able to create as freelance models, because it's not a traditional career path. Because we're freelancers and we don't have bosses who are, scared of what might happen if we do that. So I feel like we have a lot of power and a lot of potential, and there's a lot of hope in this as well.
I'm not feeling it as much, but I'm trying. I'm working to try to not be bitter, which is very hard sometimes. But I'm glad to hear that. I'm glad it is feeling hopeful for people. That is very important.
And I mean, definitely with the whole financial aspect of it, I can see that making it scary.
Yeah, definitely. But still fighting the good fight, doing what little bit I can to be an activist, use this privilege wisely, as I try to remind myself.
Yes. Yeah. We have such a platform as freelance models. People like to follow traditionally pretty women. So we end up with these massive platforms, and it's important that we use those.
Yeah, that's why I think it's irresponsible with people who have really big platforms who don't post about political issues. That, to me, I kind of find it unacceptable. If you have a huge platform and you're not using that platform for good, like, what's the fucking point? Then you're part of the problem. But that's just me. So I'm not going to tell other women what to do, but I kind of am going to tell other women what to do. You have a big platform, use it for good.
Yeah. I'm sort of two sides about that, because I feel very, very strongly in agreement with you. And at the same time, I remember when the thought of doing that just triggered me so much because I'd been so conditioned to stay silent.
Yeah.
And so I feel like it took me a long time before I was ready. But now that I am, I'm like, yes, if I don't do this, it's irresponsible. So
and that's a good note for me. I mean, I have a tendency to steamroll or dictate to people or just take that this is the right way. And it's good for me to be reminded that it's not like that for everyone. I come from an upper middle class, very secure, loving, safe background. Never had a daddy issue in my life. My dad's a great dad. My parents know what I do. They don't quite understand it, but they love me. I'm not in any sort of risk of being disowned. I don't have to necessarily worry about rely on them for finances like a lot of people do. And it's always good for me personally to be reminded that it's not always easy for everyone else. So thanks. It's always a good reminder.
yeah, you know, I feel like there are a lot of issues in this industry where they're not always quite so black and white.
Definitely.
The nuanced discussion is really where we've got so much amazing opportunity for growth.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. There's always room to grow, both creatively and as an activist and personally. That's what's so great about, like I was saying earlier, being honest and transparent and being able to be open about your vulnerabilities. There's ability to grow there. If you just think you always know what's right, you don't really grow. So I hate admitting when I'm not right or when I'm not perfect, but there are lots of ways that I can grow, and that's just part of it.
Yeah. Well, this has been awesome.
Yes,
Thank you so much. I want to ask one last question if you've got the time.
Yeah, I do.
So I've had so much fun throughout this summit, ending with the question of there was one thing maybe that you wish a more experienced model would have told you at some point earlier in your career, if there's something that you want to share with the models who are watching this today.
So I think that the best advice I can give for people is to, if you're not tall and thin, you can still make money modeling. You can basically be any size. It's definitely harder if you are a person of color. It is definitely harder if you are not standard height and if you're not skinny. Those things are all, it's going to be a little harder, but you can do it. You can make money from this industry no matter what kind of size and what kind of feeling you have about yourself, I guess is the best way to put it. You can make money off of this. You just have to, like I said, you have to shoot a lot. You have to reach out to community. You have to be actively engaged in it. You have to find different ways to come at it. I also photograph and I'll make clothes, and like these are all different avenues back into modeling and into my brand. And so just try to stay focused on what it is that you want, but you can do this. You can absolutely do this.
That's awesome. Thank you so much. Yeah, that's one of the things I love so much about this freelance nude modeling as a genre is it is so inclusive and there's space for every body type.
Yeah, definitely. And it's not, you know, there's the economic and financial realities that we are currently facing are different from when I started, and that also has to be taken into account. Than when I started 8 years ago, it was probably a little easier for people to afford a luxury like hiring a fine art model, but there's enough money to go around. You just kind of have to get yourself out there and physically get yourself out there to where the shoots are and believe that you can do it. The best thing I can tell people is to, even if you don't feel confident, I feel insecure all the time, like all the time. But when I go into a shoot, you take that away. You just like, you stay confident. You stay like ready. You know, knowing how to pose for the things that you don't like you feel bloated, knowing how to pose around that's very helpful. Using props, very good idea. But you can do this no matter what kind of size you are, and even if you don't feel super confident. Most models don't feel super confident. They just are really good at acting like it.
Yep. Yeah, that's something I really like to point out is the insecurities don't just somehow magically go away once you're a couple years in and have a big portfolio. Like a portfolio might look great, but we're still the same person and we still have a lifetime of societal programming behind us. And it gets easier over time. You might get a little more confident, but we're not just like magically super confident people who never have insecurities or doubts or fears.
No way. I was actually more confident when I was younger because I wasn't seeing shitty pictures of myself or even good pictures of myself that I know were photoshopped. I wasn't seeing that. So I was like, things are great. Like, yeah, I don't have abs, but whatever. But now I see every single flaw, and it's so hard not to fixate on those flaws, but I try to just step back from it, gloss over it, do a shoot that makes me feel really good if I'm feeling down. But yeah, no, insecurities don't really go away. You have to actively work on them. I still don't have abs. I'm still trying, but I'm lazy. One day I'll have abs. That's my goal.
How funny. Strangely, abs are one of those things that I've always been sort of meh about.
Really?
For me, I feel no need to have abs.
Oh my gosh. No way.
Yeah.
I always assume that everyone just like wants flat tummy abs. I'm so glad that people are like, nah.
Yeah. I don't know, like of all the various bits of programming I have, all the insecurities, never felt the need for abs.
That's so awesome.
Yeah.
That's how I feel about cellulite. I'm just like, whatever. I'll wear the shortest shorts ever, and if you don't like my cellulite, whatever. I can't see it.
You know what? It's so funny. I showed up to this shoot, and we're going a little tangential here at the end. Sorry about that, but I'll include the story. I did this Playboy TV shoot. And the model who's the host for the program, I'm getting prepped, and I'm in these short shorts, and she walks up to me, and she like stares at my thighs, and she goes, "You don't have cellulite. That's good." And then like starts telling me about how she has to like spray stuff on her legs to get rid of the cellulite before every shoot. And I'm just
what does she spray on her legs though? Because now I'm super curious. I would utilize it.
I have no idea, but it was just like I was just like, it was the weirdest. Like she just walks up and stares at my thighs, and is like, "You don't have cellulite."
How weird.
Well, okay. Nice to meet you too.
Yeah, right. It's so funny. It's so funny. That's what's the thing. Cellulite is one of those things that has basically nothing to do with your weight that I think people get really weird about. I have seen some of the skinniest girls ever have cellulite, and I've seen women who are super, super curvy have like none. So really it is completely genetic. And I assume there are exercises you can do to lessen it, but for the most part, don't worry about your cellulite.
Yeah, it's like thigh gaps. Like thigh gaps have nothing to do with how skinny you are. It's all about how wide your hips are.
And you can pose to make a thigh gap happen.
Yeah.
I can pose to make a thigh gap happen, and I can promise you that my thighs touch like this. So it's a good thing that experience helps you in posing, because it certainly does. But yeah, you just find ways to cover up your insecurities, I feel like, in ways that feel natural and organic when you're posing. So that's just an experience thing. That's why people should get out there and they should shoot.
Yes. Yeah, but I also like, that's why I really like and it's time that I do a new set of photos, but I like posting photos of myself just flat-footed in the bathroom mirror, like not posing, belly started doing its natural thing, you know, flat-footed, not on tiptoes, looking like a normal human being, because it's like really like it's all posing. It's all posing. Anybody can learn to do this.
You're a stronger woman than I just can't bring myself to. Every time someone's like put feet flat on the floor and like look towards me, I'm like, do I have to?
Yeah, to shoot, I don't really want to do that.
And I just do my side leg and like make sure my arms look nice and my stomach looks good. I do like posting unedited photos because I think there's such a myth of like natural beauty. Like, yeah, you woke up like this, but you got fillers and dyed your hair, which both of things I am super pro. Obviously, I have gray hair that I cover, but all of that is Photoshop or makeup or fillers, which are all great, but you just need to think critically about what you're being shown, because people do things to cover it up.
Yeah.
So sorry if you just heard squeaking. I think my friends just got here, so probably a good time to end.
Yeah, we've gone a little bit over where I expected, but it was really fun chatting with you. Thank you so much.
And for anyone watching this, if you have more questions or you just want to reach out, you can always find me on my Patreon, or please feel free to shoot me an email. A lot of times I can't answer a bajillion questions, but I am happy to do some mentoring services or some teaching or just more things like this. If people have simple questions they want me to answer, my door is always open. So I hope people feel like they can. I know I look really aloof online. It's a little bit calculated, but feel free to ask me more questions and, find out how to make you the best you can be.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And definitely take her up on that if you want some connection. She's amazing.
Yeah.
Awesome. Cool.
Thank you so much for this.
Thank you so much. It was great. I know people will learn a lot. And thank you everybody for watching. Bye-bye.
Bye.